Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! The crisp snap of a magazine page turning was the only sound that broke the sterile hush of the waiting area. A sense of jittery anticipation vibrated through the air, as if every patient present could hear their destinies whispering just beyond the threshold of perception. In the corner, a figure sitting with limbs poised to spring into action caught a glimpse of their appearance in the gleaming floor mirrors. Blonde locks neatly brushed, yet frame slightly askew, as though an unseen force had warped the image just so. This person, Forrest, was all too familiar with that uncanny sensation, a sense of unease that had dogged them since youth. As the autumn breeze whisked through the trees beyond the window, sending russet leaves dancing across the pavement, Forrest's heart mirrored the world's chaotic embrace of change. Years of furtive behaviors had led up to this moment. Nights spent watching makeup tutorials in the small hours, furtive try-ons of Monica's sundresses, and clandestine shopping adventures that ended before checkout. "Your appointment is ready," the receptionist announced. With a deep intake of breath, Forrest rose, each step forward akin to stepping into uncharted lands. "Forrest Keller, please, have a seat." "Thank you for seeing me, Dr. Bryant." The chair creaked beneath him. "I've reviewed your referral from Dr. Cheng." She smiled warmly. "Let's talk about what brought you here today." For a moment, words failed. How to compress decades of confusion into a clinical conversation? How to explain that childhood memories consisted of envying girls' clothing, of knowing something was different but lacking the vocabulary to name it? "I've been living as someone I'm not." The confession emerged quietly. "For as long as I can remember, and I can't do it anymore." Dr. Bryant nodded, her expression free of judgment. "Tell me about when you first recognized this disconnect." Memories cascaded forward, being 7 and crying when forced to cut his growing hair, being 16 and secretly trying on his mother's dress while home alone, experiencing a moment of profound rightness before panic set in, nights spent researching gender dysphoria on incognito browser tabs. I've known since childhood, but I didn't have the words for it until my 20s. I've been privately dressing in women's clothing for years. At first I thought it was just a hobby, something private, but it's more than that. It's who I am. The consultation unfolded with unexpected compassion. Dr. Bryant explained hormone replacement therapy with clinical precision but human warmth. She outlined the gradual changes: fat redistribution, decreased muscle mass, breast development, softened skin. "This isn't a decision to make lightly," she cautioned. "But for those experiencing genuine gender dysphoria, HRT can be life-changing." "I've been thinking about this for 15 years, Forrest replied. "I'm certain." After comprehensive blood work, psychological evaluation questions, and a discussion of risks and expectations, Dr. Bryant wrote out a prescription for estrogen and anti-androgens. The paper felt impossibly light for something so heavy with significance. "We'll start you on a conservative dosage and monitor closely. I'd like to see you again in 4 weeks to check your levels." Walking out of the office, prescription clutched in his hand, Forrest experienced a sensation he'd rarely known: hope. The bright October sun seemed to illuminate a future that, for the first time, might contain authenticity. 4 weeks turned into 8, then 12. Winter descended, snow blanketing the city as internal changes manifested slowly, subtly. Forrest's skin softened first, then emotional shifts arrived. Crying during commercials, feeling anger differently, experiencing a spectrum of emotion previously compressed behind masculine stoicism. By month 3, small but unmistakable breast buds had formed, tender beneath his increasingly ill-fitting blue button-downs. His face gradually rounded, cheekbones becoming more prominent as facial fat redistributed. Friends noticed something different, but couldn't quite identify what had changed.
"New haircut?"
asked Carlos from the graphic design department.
"Just taking better care of myself,"
Forrest answered, which wasn't untrue. He had begun moisturizing, growing out his blonde hair, and learning proper skincare routines from YouTube tutorials. At home, privacy allowed for exploration. The cramped apartment bathroom became a laboratory of transformation. Forrest practiced makeup application, voice training, and studied the nuances of feminine movement patterns. He'd ordered women's clothing online, gradually building a secret wardrobe hidden in suitcases beneath his bed. Monica, his roommate of 3 years, noticed changes in his behavior, but respected his privacy. They'd always maintained comfortable boundaries, sharing the 2-bedroom apartment more as friendly acquaintances than intimate friends. Her frequent weekend trips to visit her boyfriend in Philadelphia provided valuable solitude. During one such weekend, 5 months into HRT, Forrest stood before the full-length mirror in Monica's room, with her permission this time. She'd begun leaving her closet unlocked after he'd finally confessed to borrowing her clothes. "Just ask next time," she'd said, with surprising nonchalance. "And please don't stretch out my favorite black dress. It cost a fortune." Now, studying his reflection, Forrest barely recognized himself. His blonde hair had grown past his ears, styled into a feminine bob. The hormones had softened his jawline and given his cheeks a gentle fullness. Small but definite breasts pressed against the fabric of Monica's red sweater dress. His hips had begun to widen, creating a more feminine silhouette. For the first time in his life, the person in the mirror matched the person in his mind.
"This is me,"
he whispered, but even as he said it, he knew he no longer fit. When Monica returned Sunday evening, she found her roommate waiting nervously in the living room.
"We need to talk,"
Forrest said, still in masculine clothing, perched on the edge of the sofa. Monica set down her weekend bag. "Should I be worried?"
"No, but it's important."
A deep breath.
"I'm transgender. I've been on hormone replacement therapy for 5 months.
I've known for years, but was too scared to do anything about it." Monica's expression shifted from surprise to understanding. "The clothes borrowing makes more sense now. I'm planning to transition fully. Socially, legally, everything. And I've chosen a new name. Phoebe." "Phoebe," Monica repeated, testing the name. "It suits you." The simple acceptance unlocked something. Tears spilled freely down Phoebe's cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. "Does anyone else know?" "Not yet. Work will be next, but I wanted to start with home." Monica sat beside her. "This won't be easy, but you've got at least one person in your corner." That night, Phoebe slept better than she had in years. 6 months into her transition, Phoebe stood in her bedroom, no longer cluttered with hidden feminine items, but openly displaying her true self. The closet door stood open, revealing a growing collection of women's clothing purchased with care and consideration. She pulled a red sweater dress over her head, adjusting it over her new curves. The mirror reflected a woman with shoulder-length blonde hair, subtle makeup enhancing rather than masking her features. The hormones had worked subtle magic, redistributing fat to create a more feminine face and figure. She was still recognizably related to the person who had been Forrest, but fundamentally different too, authentic in a way that person had never been. "Phoebe?" Monica called from the hallway. "Can I borrow your black mascara? Mine's dried up." "Top drawer in the bathroom," Phoebe called back, still marveling at the naturalness of her feminine voice after months of practice. The coming out process at work had been surprisingly anticlimactic. After an anxious meeting with HR and her direct supervisor, a company-wide email had been sent, and Phoebe had arrived at the office the following Monday, presenting as her true self. There had been awkward moments, misgendered pronouns, and confused looks, but the graphic design team had proven largely supportive. Her parents remained a work in progress, her father struggling with the change, her mother trying to understand through teary phone calls and tentative questions. But they hadn't rejected her, which was more than many in her transgender support group could say. Tonight marked a milestone. After months of building a proper women's wardrobe piece by piece, Phoebe was finally discarding the last of Forrest's clothing. The blue button-down shirts, the boxy jeans, the masculine socks and underwear, all bagged for donation. She smoothed the red dress over her hips, admiring how the color complemented her fair skin and blonde hair. For tomorrow, she'd selected a black pencil skirt and ivory blouse, professional attire for the client presentation she was leading. Her confidence had grown alongside her authenticity. She found herself speaking up more in meetings, taking creative risks she'd previously avoided. "You look amazing," Monica observed, appearing in the doorway. "Hot date tonight?" Phoebe shook her head, smiling. "Just celebrating 6 months on HRT. I thought I'd treat myself to dinner at that new Italian place downtown." "Alone? No way. I'm coming too." Monica disappeared to change, returning moments later in a purple dress. "This calls for wine and tiramisu." At the restaurant, seated beneath soft lighting with a glass of Chianti in hand, Phoebe felt a surge of gratitude. The journey ahead remained long, voice training to master, potential surgeries to consider, legal name change paperwork to file. But for the first time, she was moving through the world as herself. "To Phoebe," Monica raised her glass. "Long may she reign." Phoebe laughed, clinking her glass against her friend's. "I'll drink to that." Winter melted into spring, and Phoebe bloomed alongside the cherry trees lining the city streets. Morning rituals that had once felt foreign, applying mascara, styling her growing blonde hair, selecting earrings, now flowed with natural ease. The black pencil skirt that had once felt daring now hung comfortably on her increasingly feminine frame, paired with a silk blouse in deep emerald. 8 months into hormone therapy, her body continued its gradual transformation. Her narrow waist and fuller hips drew occasional admiring glances on her morning commute. Her breasts, though modest, filled an A-cup bra with the assistance of subtle enhancers. Her skin had grown remarkably soft, facial hair reduced to sparse remnants easily managed with weekly electrolysis appointments. Yet the physical changes paled compared to the psychological liberation. The constant background noise of gender dysphoria, a lifelong static she'd grown so accustomed to she'd barely recognized it, had diminished drastically. In its place grew confidence, joy, and a presence in her own body she'd never before experienced. "The Henderson pitch needs revisions," Carlos said, dropping a folder on her desk. He paused, studying her face. "You look different today. Good different." Phoebe touched her cheek self-consciously. "Just tried a new foundation." "No, it's not that." He squinted. "You just seem happier these days." She smiled. "I am." The office had adjusted to her transition with varying degrees of grace. Most colleagues made genuine efforts with her name and pronouns. though occasional slip-ups occurred. The creative director had proven unexpectedly supportive, assigning Phoebe to high-profile clients without hesitation. Only Gerald from accounting maintained uncomfortable distance, his eyes sliding away whenever she entered the break room. Phoebe had expected worse. The stories shared in her support group often featured job loss, harassment, or ostracism. By comparison, her experience felt charmed, though she recognized the privilege afforded by her profession in a creative field and a progressive city. Her phone buzzed with a text from Monica. "Dad's surprise party still on for Saturday? Need help with decorations?" Phoebe replied, "Absolutely. I'll get balloons after work." The friendship with Monica had deepened through Phoebe's transition. What began as roommate convenience had evolved into genuine sisterhood, with Monica offering advice on everything from eyeliner application to dealing with catcalls. That evening, as spring rain pattered against the windows, Phoebe sat cross-legged on her bed, surrounded by paperwork. The legal name change process required patience and persistence, forms to complete, fees to pay, court dates to schedule. She'd saved for months to afford the process, along with the subsequent updates to her driver's license, social security card, and passport. The name Forrest Keller stared up from her birth certificate. A person who had never truly existed yet had walked through the world for 32 years. Soon that name would become a footnote, a chrysalis discarded. Signing the petition for name change, Phoebe practiced her new signature. Phoebe Keller, in flowing script, keeping her surname as a final connection to family history. Her phone rang. Her mother. "Hello, dear," came the hesitant voice.
"I was just checking in."
Their conversations remained cautious terrain, navigated with care on both sides. Her mother tried, genuinely tried, but struggled with pronouns and often lapsed into memories of, "When you were my son." "I'm good, Mom. Just working on my name change paperwork." A pause. "So, it will be official then?" "That's the idea." Another pause, longer. "Your father and I found some of your childhood photos yesterday, the ones from the lake house. You were always such a happy child." Phoebe closed her eyes. "I wasn't, Mom. I pretended to be." "Oh." The word carried bewilderment. "I didn't know." "How could you? I didn't understand it myself back then." They spoke for several minutes more. Careful conversation about weather, her mother's garden, an upcoming family anniversary. Before hanging up, her mother said, "I ordered a book about parents of transgender children. The bookstore lady recommended it." The effort, however awkward, touched Phoebe deeply. "Thank you, Mom. That means a lot." After the call, she returned to the paperwork with renewed purpose. The rain outside intensified, drumming against the roof, but inside, Phoebe felt warmer than she had in years. 1 year on hormone replacement therapy merited celebration. Phoebe marked the occasion with a cupcake topped with a single candle, shared with Monica in their apartment. "Make a wish," Monica urged. Phoebe closed her eyes, thinking not of what she wanted, but of what she already had. A body that increasingly matched her internal identity, a job where she could express her creativity, friends who accepted her authentic self. The wish formed naturally. Continued progress, continued peace. She blew out the candle. "What did you wish for?" Monica asked. "Can't tell, or it won't come true," Phoebe replied, licking frosting from her finger. The year had brought remarkable changes. Her blonde hair now fell past her shoulders in soft waves.
Her voice, after dedicated training with a speech therapist, had settled into a naturally feminine range. Her body had continued its transformation. Curves where angles had been, softness replacing hardness, a figure that drew compliments on the emerald dress she'd worn to the office holiday party. Legal documentation now aligned with her identity. Her driver's license photo showed a woman with clear eyes and a confident smile, the name Phoebe Elena Keller printed in official type. The process had been expensive and bureaucratically exhausting, but the result, identification that reflected her true self, proved profoundly affirming. Work had evolved as well. A promotion to senior graphic designer had come with a corner workspace and creative lead on major accounts. Colleagues who'd known her before transition now sometimes expressed surprise when reminded of her past identity. "I can barely remember you any other way," her coworker Denise had commented recently. Dating remained complicated territory. Phoebe had ventured onto dating apps with trepidation, struggling with when and how to disclose her transgender status. Some early attempts had ended in ghosting or uncomfortable questions, but a recent coffee date with Ricardo, a landscape architect she'd met through a friend, had shown promise. "You're overthinking this," Monica insisted, as Phoebe fretted over her outfit for their third date. "The black dress with the scoop neck? Trust me." "What if he's just being nice? What if he's not actually attracted to me?" Phoebe held the black dress against her body, studying her reflection critically. "He asked you out 3 times in 2 weeks. He brought you flowers. Stop inventing problems." Ricardo proved worth the anxiety. Dinner at a small Vietnamese restaurant unfolded with easy conversation and lingering glances. He spoke passionately about sustainable urban design, while Phoebe described a branding campaign she'd developed for an eco-friendly clothing line. "I'd love to see your work sometime," he said, reaching across the table to touch her hand. The gesture sent warmth spreading through her chest.
"I'd like that."
Later, standing outside her apartment building, Ricardo hesitated.
"I'd really like to kiss you."
Heart racing, Phoebe nodded. His lips met hers gently, briefly, before he pulled back with a smile.
"Good night, Phoebe."
Inside, she leaned against her closed door, touching her lips with wonder. Physical intimacy as her authentic self. Another first in a year filled with them. "Hold still," Monica commanded, wielding an eyelash curler. "You'll thank me later." Phoebe obediently froze, allowing her roommate to perfect her makeup. The black cocktail dress she'd chosen for tonight's company gala draped elegantly over her figure, the result of 18 months on hormone therapy and dedicated attention to fitness and nutrition. "There," Monica stepped back to admire her work. "Absolutely stunning." The mirror reflected a confident woman with shoulder-length blonde hair styled in loose waves, smoky eye makeup accentuating green eyes, and a subtle rose lipstick. At 34, Phoebe had grown comfortable in her femininity, developing a personal style that balanced professional polish with creative touches. "Ricardo's going to swallow his tongue when he sees you," Monica predicted. "That would make dinner conversation difficult," Phoebe replied dryly, adjusting a silver bracelet on her wrist. Their relationship had developed gradually over 8 months. Dinners, museum visits, weekend hikes, and increasingly passionate evenings. Ricardo had responded to her disclosure of being transgender with thoughtful questions and unwavering interest. "I'm dating you, not a category," he'd said simply. The doorbell rang. Monica squeezed Phoebe's shoulder. "Knock 'em dead." Ricardo stood in the hallway, handsome in a charcoal suit, holding a small bouquet of white roses. His eyes widened appreciatively as they traveled from Phoebe's face to her black dress and back again.
You look incredible,
he breathed. She accepted the flowers with a kiss. You clean up pretty well yourself. The design agency's annual gala filled a downtown hotel ballroom with creative professionals in formal attire.
As senior designer, Phoebe circulated confidently among colleagues and clients, introducing Ricardo with pride. The evening sparkled with champagne, laughter, and the particular satisfaction of professional recognition.
Your campaign for Westridge Sports was brilliant,
commented the creative director, raising her glass.
The board specifically mentioned your work during the quarterly review.
Thank you,
Phoebe replied, warmth spreading through her chest that had nothing to do with champagne. The team really came together on that project. Later, swaying on the dance floor in Ricardo's arms, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. 2 years earlier, she'd sat trembling in an endocrinologist's office, terrified yet determined. Now she moved through the world as herself, building a career, nurturing relationships, and experiencing joy that once seemed impossibly distant. Ricardo's arms tightened around her waist.
What are you thinking about? You've got that faraway look.
Just how much has changed. How grateful I am.
His eyes, warm and brown, held hers.
I'm the grateful one.
The music shifted to something slower, more intimate. Ricardo's hand pressed against the small of her back, drawing her closer. Phoebe rested her cheek against his shoulder, inhaling his cologne and the underlying scent that was uniquely him.
Move in with me,
he said suddenly. My lease is up next month anyway. Phoebe pulled back slightly to study his face. Are you serious? Completely. I love waking up with you on weekends. I want that every day. The prospect of leaving the apartment she'd shared with Monica, the space where she'd begun her transition, where she'd first presented as her authentic self, brought a bittersweet pang. Yet the future Ricardo offered glimmered with promise. Yes, she said simply. His smile illuminated his entire face. Pulling her close again, he whispered against her hair,
You've made me the happiest man in this room.
The dance continued, a gentle swaying beneath crystal chandeliers. Phoebe closed her eyes, surrendering to the moment, to the music, to Ricardo's embrace, to the profound rightness of being exactly where she belonged. Moving day arrived with unseasonable heat, perspiration beading on Phoebe's forehead as she taped another cardboard box shut. Her bedroom, once a sanctuary of transformation, now stood half empty. Dresser drawers gaped open, closet hangers swung bare, and surfaces had been cleared of personal items. Found one more, Monica called, entering with a black shoebox. Under the bathroom sink? Phoebe accepted it with a nostalgic smile. My first pair of heels. I practiced walking in them for hours while you were away that weekend. Monica leaned against the doorframe. God, that feels like another lifetime ago. 2 years. Phoebe placed the box carefully into a larger carton. I couldn't have done it without you. Sure you could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to. They embraced tightly, Monica's dark hair tickling Phoebe's cheek. Their friendship had weathered the complexities of Phoebe's transition, Ricardo's increasing presence, and now this separation. The apartment's going to be so quiet, Monica said, pulling back. You'll enjoy having the bathroom to yourself again, and no competition for refrigerator space.
True, though I'll miss borrowing your makeup.
Ricardo appeared in the doorway, sleeves rolled up, forearms glistening with sweat.
The truck's loaded, except for these last few boxes.
The goodbye stretched longer than intended. Last-minute discoveries of overlooked items. Promises to meet for coffee next week. A final tour of the emptied bedroom. When Phoebe finally closed the apartment door behind her, emotion tightened her throat.
You okay?
Ricardo asked, carrying the final box toward the elevator. She nodded, blinking back tears. Just a lot of memories in that apartment.
We'll make new ones,
he promised. Ricardo's, now their, apartment occupied the third floor of a renovated factory building with exposed brick walls, tall windows, and hardwood floors. They spent the afternoon unpacking, negotiating shelf space and furniture arrangement. By evening, exhausted but satisfied, they collapsed onto the sofa with takeout containers.
Welcome home,
Ricardo said, raising his beer bottle. Phoebe clinked her glass against it. Home, she repeated, tasting the word. Later, after a shower had washed away the day's sweat and fatigue, Phoebe stood in the bedroom they now shared. Her clothes hung beside Ricardo's in the closet, her black dresses and emerald blouses against his button-downs and sweaters. Her makeup occupied one side of the bathroom counter, her preferred shampoo already in the shower. Ricardo emerged from the bathroom, hair damp, wearing only boxers. His gaze traveled appreciatively over her silk nightgown. Have I mentioned how lucky I am? Only about 5 times today. She smiled, sliding beneath the covers. He joined her, pulling her close.
Make it 6 then.
Physical intimacy had initially frightened Phoebe, her body a landscape still unfamiliar and sometimes uncomfortable. But Ricardo's patience and her growing self-acceptance had transformed fear into desire. Tonight, their lovemaking carried the sweet significance of beginning, this new home, this deepened commitment. Afterward, lying with her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat slow, Phoebe considered the journey from that endocrinologist's waiting room to this moment. The path had twisted unexpectedly, companions joining and circumstances shifting, but each step had moved her closer to authenticity.
What's going on in that beautiful head?
Ricardo murmured, stroking her blonde hair.
Just thinking about how far I've come, how different things were 2 years ago.
His arms tightened around her.
Proud of you.
Simple words carrying profound meaning. Phoebe closed her eyes, allowing herself to feel the fullness of the moment, the warmth of Ricardo's body against hers, the satisfaction of a day's work completed, the sense of rightness in her own skin.
I love you,
she whispered, his lips pressed against her forehead.
I love you too, Phoebe. Every part of you.
Sleep came easily, deep and dreamless, in their shared bed, in their shared home. Another first in a life increasingly defined not by what had been lost, but by what had been found. 3 years on hormone therapy found Phoebe sitting in a sun-dappled cafe, nervously straightening the emerald silk blouse she'd paired with her favorite black pencil skirt. Her blonde hair, longer now, had been styled into an elegant updo for the occasion. The diamond studs in her ears, a gift from Ricardo on their first anniversary, caught the morning light. Across from her sat her parents, visiting from Ohio for the first time since her transition began. Her mother looked older, silver threading through her once blonde hair. Her father's posture remained stiff, uncomfortable, though he'd made the journey willingly. "The coffee is excellent here," Phoebe said, breaking an awkward silence. Her mother nodded. Lovely place. Very artistic. The conversation stuttered forward. Comments about the weather, the flight from Columbus, the interesting architecture of the downtown area. Beneath the superficial exchange, deeper currents swirled. Her mother's eyes repeatedly returned to Phoebe's face, studying her features with a mixture of wonder and loss. Her father mostly studied his coffee. Your apartment is nice, her mother offered. Ricardo seems very kind. He is, Phoebe agreed. I'm lucky to have found him. Another silence descended. Phoebe traced the rim of her coffee cup, gathering courage. I know this is difficult, she finally said, meeting her mother's gaze directly. Seeing me this way, but I need you to understand. I'm happier than I've ever been. Healthier, more myself. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. You look, well, beautiful, actually. The compliment, however hesitant, loosened something in Phoebe's chest. Thank you. Her father cleared his throat.
Your mother's right. You look healthy.
The word seemed carefully chosen, neutral territory. It wasn't full acceptance, but it was effort, and effort mattered. Ricardo mentioned dinner tonight, her mother continued. At that Italian place. Martinelli's. You'll love it. The conversation gradually warmed, her parents' initial discomfort thawing in the face of Phoebe's evident well-being. By the time they'd finished their coffee and pastries, her father had managed to look her in the eye without immediately glancing away, and her mother had stopped referring to her past with painful frequency. Walking back to the apartment, Phoebe between her parents, she felt a cautious optimism. The path to family reconciliation would be long and sometimes painful, but this visit represented crucial first steps. Later that evening, dressed in the black cocktail dress she'd worn to the company gala, Phoebe waited with Ricardo for her parents to arrive at the restaurant. His hand covered hers on the table.
You're tense,
he observed.
They'll be fine.
Lunch went well, right? Better than expected, she acknowledged. But conversation over coffee is different from a formal dinner. He squeezed her hand. They're trying. Give them time. Her parents arrived promptly, her father uncomfortable but dignified in a sport coat, her mother elegant in a navy dress. The maitre d' seated them at a table beneath a crystal chandelier. Wine was poured, and menus distributed. Over appetizers, conversation remained cautious. But as the main courses arrived, something shifted. Her father began describing a documentary he'd recently watched about graphic design, directing his comments to Phoebe with genuine interest. Her mother asked Ricardo about his landscape architecture projects, listening attentively to his descriptions of sustainable urban planning. By dessert, Phoebe realized they were having a normal family dinner, parents getting to know their daughter's partner, sharing stories, even laughing occasionally. It wasn't perfect. Her father still stumbled over pronouns. Her mother occasionally lapsed into painful reminiscence. But they were trying, genuinely trying. As Ricardo signaled for the check, her father cleared his throat.
Your mother and I have been thinking. Thanksgiving is coming up. We'd like you both to come to Ohio, if you're able.
The invitation hung in the air, heavy with significance. Phoebe glanced at Ricardo, who nodded subtly. We'd love to, she said, voice thick with emotion. Outside the restaurant, goodbyes included awkward but earnest hugs. Her mother held on longer than necessary, whispering, I'm trying to understand. I know, Mom. Thank you. Walking home through the cool evening air, Ricardo's arm around her waist, Phoebe felt a profound sense of integration. Past and present, family of origin and chosen family, beginning to weave together into a coherent whole. "You were right," she admitted. "They're trying." Ricardo kissed her temple.
"One step at a time."
At home, changing into comfortable pajamas, Phoebe caught her reflection in the bedroom mirror. The woman who looked back had come a long way from that nervous person in the blue button-down shirt, sitting in the endocrinologist's waiting room. Her blonde hair, her green eyes, the curve of her cheek, all familiar now, all authentically hers. The journey wasn't complete. Some challenges remained, potential surgeries to consider, ongoing negotiations with family, occasional difficult moments in public spaces. But standing there in the quiet bedroom of the home she shared with the man she loved, after dinner with parents who were learning to accept her, Phoebe recognized the extraordinary distance already traveled. She was, at last, and without qualification, herself.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!